Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I've got a story to share. I live in Louisiana, and I'm friends with an English professor who teaches at Southeastern Louisiana University. I took his class, and we ended up becoming good friends. We're going to call him Graham. Graham is a native, grew up here, and had a cottage in the James Joyce Reserve west of Lake Pontchartrain. In this place, Graham made friends with a guy who's good friends with a guy named Shelby Stranga, whom Graham has also met. Shelby had a short-lived show named Shelby the Swamp Man. He's a logger. His job is to go into swamps and find specific trees that have sunk to the bottom. He jumps in, coils it with chains, and brings it to the surface. These trees tend to sell for a lot of money since they are extremely waterproof and sturdy. It's a dangerous profession and sometimes makes good money, but you run the risk of finding no trees and making no money. Most of the time, these loggers either work by themselves or just have one partner. Shelby usually works by himself since it's less money he has to share. This provides the context for the experience Shelby had. Back in the early 2000s, before Hurricane Katrina, Shelby was deep in some swamp southwest of New Orleans. It was deep in the bayous, and he was searching for any signs of logs that had fallen into the swamp. As he was lifting a submerged log he had found, he had this strange feeling he was being watched. Suddenly, he noticed this strange-looking one-eyed monkey perched on a branch in a nearby tree. It was just watching him, wasn't moving or making any noise. Shelby was a little freaked out by it, and decided to leave the area since he had found his log for the day. He dropped off his catch and returned to his camp, which was a few miles away from that spot. A week later, he was heading into the swamp one morning when he noticed the monkey was watching him from a different place. He only saw it for a few seconds since he was heading into a new area, but he didn't see it again. A few days later, Shelby was driving his boat down into the bayou. Half a mile from his camp, he noticed the monkey was watching him from the bank of a river. Again, he only saw it for a few seconds, but it freaked him out since he didn't know what to think of it. He initially thought it was some deformed monkey that escaped a zoo or something. A few days later, Shelby's at his camp, sleeping by himself when he suddenly woke up and felt that paranoid feeling again. He turned on his lights and saw the monkey in his room sitting on his dresser, just watching him. He ran out, jumped in his truck, and drove straight to the city. A month passed, and he refused to go back to his camp because he was so scared of the thing. One day, one of his friends, the friend that Graham's friends with, convinced Shelby to go out for some lunch in the French Quarter. While they were walking around after lunch, they passed a tarot shop. Shelby's friend was interested in getting a reading since he was about to buy a large chunk of land for some hunting reasons, and wanted to know if he was going to make a good investment. Shelby was reluctant and said he would just watch. When they entered, the woman who owned the shop agreed to read Shelby's friend, and they sat down. I don't remember the cards she pulled, but the short gist is that she foresaw a large transaction of money taking place for land, but that it would be worth it. There were other details, but the important part is that she kept eyeing up Shelby. When she finished, Shelby was about to walk out when she stopped him. She told him to be careful. Her exact words were, "That thing isn't a monkey. That's just how it wants you to see it." He freaked out and actually paid her some money. That week, he asked some friends to go to his camp and get his stuff. He paid them for their work, but never went back to that spot. He ended up selling it, but it was destroyed by Katrina. Never saw the monkey again. Still does his logging.
There will be nothing about this online, but I spent summers growing up with grandparents in Pitt, Louisiana, and we had this weird local thing that was jokingly dubbed by old-timers as the Woolygator. Something like a dogman crossed with a black panther, maybe it was a loup-garou. I saw it twice, once while racing a go-kart through a forest path, seeing this freaky-looking black and gray creature with long ears standing on two legs right next to the trail, then running straight towards my go-kart on four legs but turning away at the last second. It just occurred to me now after all these years that it was an aborted attack. It charged and changed its mind. Until now I thought it was just spooked. The second time, I was with my youngest brother. Then a small child, on Easter, and we were looking for hidden eggs in the grass. We both looked down a nearby side road visible from the yard and saw something lanky, shaggy and black with long pointed ears running across the road on 2 legs, then transitioning to 4 and hauling itself over a chain-link fence. The fence is still damaged from its weight catching in the grid and dragging down some of it. I'll dig for photos. Just remember my brother screaming and me being dumbfounded, the creature appearing to glance our way from maybe 200 yards away, and our parents and grandparents running outside to ask what was wrong. Something that does complicate it is that my grandfather was a real prankster and would do things like weld a tool for making fake devilish-looking footprints with claw marks to scare some folks by dipping it in mud and marking their porches, and he knew some taxidermists, so there's a slight chance it was him messing with us elaborately, but it moved damn fast and fluid for an old man. He claimed it was some kind of swamp booger, and to avoid this area nearby that is still eerie to me, an Indian mound in the woods with a deep creek that runs through rough terrain.
Be me. Be 11 at the time. Deep in Louisiana. Live on what used to be a large plantation. Family is pretty wealthy. One season we were struggling financially. First time I ever had to go hungry. One late night I heard a familiar sound. A slow rhythmic twang of a banjo far off. I get out of bed and look out of my window. See nothing but the empty yard. Go downstairs to the kitchen and look out of the door. See a faint light out in the woods. Sit there a few moments contemplating on what to do next. Eventually I built up the courage to check it out. The woods are silent, the grasshoppers afraid. The already unsettling feeling in the air thickens as I approach the light. I stop as I turn past a tree. The tree reveals what looks like a strange costumed man slowly playing an old slightly withered banjo. His shoulders had plumes of black feathers that swayed with his movements. The song he played was strange and unfamiliar, its melody wasn't random but almost alien sounding. As I came closer his hands looked spindly and bony. As more of his frame was revealed his whole body looked starved and dying, his fingernails now like talons as they plucked the strings. He wore a suit that looked like it was at one point highly valued, but now was decayed and rotting. His shoes were at one point fine leather, but now ripped and torn. What I originally thought was his bald head was in actuality some kind of helmet. Hesitant to come closer, I sit and watch as he plays for the trees, the source of the light being an oil lamp on the ground gently illuminating the area. As I stare in confusion I shift slightly, causing a twig to snap and his head to turn. What I thought was a helmet was shown to be a large bird skull, its eye cavities dark and empty. Fear dominated me as I ran back home and hid in my room.
In the last few years, life has not been good to me. I've had the whole gang stalking thing happen to me, get instituted 4 times in 3 years, and had mental breakdowns due to stress and feeling that I'm being watched by people in public, online, and in the media. I heard things in one ear like a hearing aid hissing, and I took a knife and tried to end my life, but that is not what I'm here to talk about. When I was younger, I had a man walk into my house and had a breakdown talking out of his head. He was talking in a catatonic state and was taken off my property by cops, and his vehicle was picked up the next day by his mom saying he didn't take his medicine. Later that year, I was a junior in high school, and I got home and was all alone, and I went to my door and people were already at my door. A girl that looked to be the age as I was. A man that was dressed like a teenager that looked like he was in his early to mid-20s. Another person was someone that was dressed like a 12 to 13-year-old kid but looked much older than he portrayed to be. They said their car broke down and that they needed help to come inside my home and give them my phone to use and stay until they were picked up. They had this weird menacing feeling about them, their wide-ass eating grin. The man that was trying to look like he was a high school kid looked oddly like Freaky Fred. They were just something off by these people. They looked way out of line in a small town in Louisiana, and when you see certain people you can just tell by them that they're from out of town. Declined their help, and I saw their wide-ass eating grin turn into a type of sickening look at me like they were sickened by my reply. But since they looked so just alien to me, I just couldn't let them in my house for a phone and wait. I could see their car by my mailbox, and when my brother got home maybe 20 minutes later, I asked if he saw 3 people in a car, and he said no. Over the years, I never thought back on it till I had the gang stalking stuff happen to me or targeted individual things, and I don't go around spreading what's happened to me to everyone in the world. A few people know what's happened to me since my sickness, since I was diagnosed schizophrenic just as the man that broke in my house 10 years apart, which is ironic. Well, I wanted a vacay from the stress and things that I witnessed daily. I took a day trip to the mounds in northeast Louisiana, right on the Mississippi border town of Vicksburg in the Delta. When I went to the bathrooms before the tour, When I went outside, I saw older Yankee-looking women with a smaller kid about 9 and the same guy I saw in 2011. I looked at their license plate from my car because I ditched that gig called Screw That Scary-looking dude. He had the same grin this time, looking down as if how I looked rather amusing. After that, life was a train wreck and I wound up getting sectioned and put in a VIA mental ward for I don't know why, for any other reason, in Alexandria, Louisiana, a place called Longleaf. I was followed and I left that place and started popping as much Lexapro as I can, as it's the only medication besides the benzodiazepine that seems to work. Honestly, I just wanted to share this oddity with the world. I hope I make it.
As a U.S. Air Force law enforcement specialist, I had earned leadership and respect by doing what I'm told to do, no matter how difficult the task. At the time, I was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. A drugged-up civilian man attempted to beat me to death. He was charged and pleaded guilty to the attempted murder of a federal officer. I had been shot at several times by gang members who thought that they could send their buddies on base to sell dope and mess with the enlisted men. I had been recruited into nuclear weapon security and presidential security. These are just a few of my duties while I served. In January 2002, early in the morning around 2 a.m., I entered a conventional weapons storage area on Barksdale Air Force Base. The CAS area was located away from the main area of the base, carved out of heavy forest. Inside the CAS area are bunkers. The bunkers have large locks on the doors that are easy to see using a spotlight from a vehicle. I enjoyed doing the CAS checks because it was often peaceful. But on this particular night, I had a gut feeling something was wrong. I called dispatch and informed them that I was doing a CAS area check. Dispatch understood I would be in the area for approximately 20 minutes. The check ended up taking much longer because the weather went from misting to heavy fog and mist, limiting my visibility to about 50 yards. With the spotlight, I crept through the CAS area to check bunkers. I became more and more scared, a fear that was new to me. I had never experienced this before. I felt almost a desperate need to leave the area. However, I wasn't finished with my area inspection. So I stopped my vehicle, got out, chambered a round in my M4 rifle, and ensured I had an M9 sidearm ready. After re-entering the vehicle, I continued my inspection. As I cleared the older bunkers, I entered a new bunker area. The fear I felt was thick in the air, and I had a fight against that gut feeling that I needed to leave the area quickly. As I approached the newer bunkers, I slowed down and had to pull up very close to them because of the heavy fog and mist. I turned on my spotlight and was shocked to see a row of bunker doors open haphazardly and the padlocks cut off and laying on the ground. I immediately called dispatch and informed them that I needed backup and I had found an unsecured area. Dispatch acknowledged and informed me they did not have a unit to back me up and I should clear the area alone. Everything I was informed to do was so far out of the normal procedures that I knew dispatch was dealing with a much bigger issue. I put the vehicle in park and grabbed my M4 rifle and slipped the safety off. I took out the flashlight and looked into the bunkers that had been cut open to find all of them completely empty. I called dispatch and informed them that I was going to return to the main base, and they acknowledged. I got back into my vehicle. The inspection was complete and I drove up to the locked gate to exit the area. As I exited the vehicle, I again had this absolute terror wash over me, to the point that I looked around into the darkness. I even called out asking if there was someone there. Nothing but complete silence. To make a long story short, the gate was stuck. I was unable to open it. The evil feeling became incredibly strong now. I could feel a presence standing behind me. It was full of hate. I became increasingly aware of this invisible entity or creature. I stopped and turned towards the area. I could feel this thing was near me and I asked it politely to allow me to leave. I turned back and the gate was free to open. I drove my vehicle through the locked gate from inside and walked about 20 feet to a pedestrian gate and attempted to unlock it to leave the area. I couldn't unlock it. I felt this entity almost pressing against me, emitting an overwhelming fear within me. I once again turned towards this entity and asked if I could please leave. I turned back to the gate and it was easily unlocked. I exited the gate and turned around, locking it shut. I had this distinct feeling that this entity was not able to leave the CAS area and I was safe from it. But it felt as if it was projecting hate and intense fear at me. I cleared the round out of my M4 and put the weapon back into the truck. I returned to my normal duties but soon realized that several hours had passed while conducting my 20-minute inspection. It was now around 7 a.m. I returned to the main base, turned in my weapons, and went to the flight chief's office to explain why I was late returning. I knocked on the door and pushed the door open to see the day shift flight chief sitting behind the desk. When he recognized me, he stood up and said in a very aggressive manner, "Did you see it?" I was thinking that the non-commissioned officer was talking about the open bunkers. I said, "Yes, sir." He came closer in an aggressive manner and again asked if I'd seen the creature. I was taken aback and said, "No, but I felt it." He looked me in the eye and told me never to go into the CAS area alone, and if I was ordered to, which was common, to discreetly inform dispatch I can't enter that area alone because I was given a lawful order not to. Strangely, I was never assigned to the CAS area again. After many years, I still have no idea what I encountered that night.
Moved with Mom and Stepdad out into nowhere, North Louisiana. I still call him my dad. 2-story house surrounded by forest, scary as hell at night when my Mom and Stepdad go into town for church. Wednesday night, Mom and Dad go to church. I stay home watching VHS movies, out in the middle of nowhere, no cable or internet, but have an arsenal of 80s and 90s VHS movies, watching some movie with John Cusack about airplanes or something. Boring, falling asleep on the couch. Suddenly I hear a weird sound outside, like on top of the roof. Hard to explain the sound, almost like a reflective swoop, followed by like a winding metallic. Wow, wow, wow. I know this sounds dumb. I don't know how else to explain. Blinding flash of light outside. At first I think it's just lightning, but this light is so white it fills the entire house for a split second. Anxiety overload. Talk self down, rationalizing and breathing. Probably just a streetlight exploded or something caused a transformer to be overloaded. No, I'm utterly lying to myself, but it's still comforting enough of a lie to fall asleep. Figure if I just fall asleep, I'll blink and Mum and Dad will be home, have a freaky dream. Naked on a cold surface, pinned down by unseen force. 3 or 4 hooded figures around me, weird faces. Faces look deformed, warped, like those weird paintings where the faces are twisted and exaggerated. Skin is freezing, tubes inside of my body, with a breathing cup over my mouth attached to a tube. So scared. Anxiety overload. Can feel tears streaking down my temples. I try to hide the fact that I'm awake from these creatures, but I can't help but cry hysterically. One of the hooded creatures puts his hand on my forearm and digs his fingers into my skin and looks directly at me. His face is so warped and weird, but his eyes are weirdly small and human. I can tell he was telling me to shut up, can't help it. My chest is heaving out of control. My heart is pounding so hard I can feel it in my neck and in my ears. The creature starts to choke me with his weird hand. I can't look at his face. His face is so terrifying, just looking at him makes me feel like my mind is trying to slip away and shut down. Bawling hysterically, I don't know what to do. The other creature starts stomping angrily towards me with some weird yellow laser axe or knife. I don't know how to explain it. Almost looked like one of those tooth flossers, but the floss was a laser. He grabs my left breast and pushes it so hard up my chest, I thought he was going to rip it off. I think he's going for my heart. I don't know what else to do. All I can think of is my last resort. Prayer. Remember the prayer my grandma told me when I was a kid, scared of monsters. All creatures start to squeal and wheeze violently. One of them seems to raise his weird fist, as if to bash it in my face and shut me up. Prayer seems to be working. Keep saying it over and over. Dad opening the front door to the house wakes me up. Oh great, it was just a dream. Mom, did you sleep the whole time we were gone? I just rolled my eyes. Mom and Dad head right upstairs. Sit on the couch for an hour thinking about the dream. So weird. Get up to go upstairs to my room. Clothes fit weird. Socks and underwear feel weird and off. Go to change clothes in my room. See red marks on my arm and neck. Uncontrollable panic attack. Run into Mum and Dad's room telling them what happened. They think I've lost my mind. Mum claims I'm demon-possessed, etc. Dad wants me to start going to therapy. Dad stays with me in my room until I fall asleep. Wake up next morning. Cannot shake the feeling. It just gets worse and worse as the week goes on. I do not feel safe. I cannot sleep because I think as soon as I fall asleep, they're just gonna come back for me. Think only option is self-termination. Go into the bathroom, look for sleeping pills and whatever I can OD on. Open drawer, try to take a bunch of pills. Wuss out and cry in defeat. See Grandma's old KJV Bible in a stack of books. WTF is it doing here? Must have been my dad reading it on the toilet one time and forgot to take it back to the living room, curl up with it against my chest, and sleep in the bathroom with it all night in the bathtub, wake up with the Bible. Ask Mom if I can keep it with me wherever I go. Mom teases me. Well, it's about damn time. Just don't lose it. She always used to belittle me about not being Christian. Always take Grandma's Bible with me now. Do not feel safe without it nearby. I try not to tell anyone about my story. No one believes me. But I guess I don't blame them. Devout Christian now. I still have nightmares about that encounter, but I truly believe prayer saved my life from whatever those things were.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.